Introduce Brendan Henkel. Brendan, if we had a cheerleader at Element, or if we had a mascot at Element, well, we do have Bolty, but so we modeled it after Brendan, and there you go. So Brendan is an amazing energy, and one of the things that he does for us is showcase Element to prospective partners, and a lot of the things that he does are he moved over from the customer success area, and with his passion and kind of understanding, having a deep knowledge of the platform, brings that into and showcasing how it can be useful for a lot of our prospective partners as well. He's been your MC, so you've been seeing a lot of him. And I'm going to hand it off to him to introduce you guys to some of the things you probably didn't know about Element.
Probably? Yeah, definitely. No, thank you. Thanks, Artis. Awesome. Yeah, I'm taking off my MC hat and I am putting on my presenter hat for the first time ever, my debut Engage presentation. So a little bit about me is, if you don't know, if you can't tell by the long list of Disney tattoos and my Disney shoes, I like Disney. One of the things that I love about Disney is like the magic that can be made, right? If you've ever been to the theme parks, cast members can have magic moments. They can sprinkle pixie dust, as it's called. And today we're gonna try and sprinkle a little pixie dust. We're gonna try and make a little bit of magic. So we're gonna talk about some of these things that you didn't know, you probably didn't know that you could do in Element. And the idea here, and one of the big pieces of Element that make it so powerful is not only its capabilities, but the time that it takes to bring those capabilities to fruition. The value that you get out of it. We've heard so many times from schools using the platform that it's like magic. It seems like magic. You go in, you put a prompt in, and you get a whole campaign like we just saw from Megan and Ty. And a lot of those things are very obvious, but there's some things in the platform that aren't so obvious, that you have to kind of dig in, know, and it does so much, you need someone to point you in that direction. So that's what this is gonna do, is point you in that direction. So let's go ahead and get started here with number 10, which is using formulas and workflows. So how many people use formulas in the import-export module? Anyone? Yes? Some hands. We got some shy folks in here. All right, so those formulas that you're using in the import-export module, you can actually use in workflows, right? And that is used to fill in custom properties or system properties on records. So you can see here, and I'm gonna actually be going back and forth of slides and live demos, but you can use these formulas within workflows to do things like custom lead scoring. You can use them to do next birthday calculations or age. And that's kind of what we have here for the first thing to show off is we have here in our demo instance, we have a workflow here that is showcasing calculating things like a current age of a student. So you can come in here and you notice the formula here is showcasing taking the date of birth and the default date of the day, and there is some transformation in there, so that's one kind of pro tip. Whenever you're putting these formulas together, whenever you're doing the testing, make sure that whatever you're putting in after the if statement is you're going to make sure that it's not pulling things like the GUID, that it's actually pulling the value for that formula as it calculates it. But this one is actually put together to showcase the age. And so whenever we go down here, I'm gonna go ahead and pull up Timothy, maybe. If it will work for me, we'll see. Let's give it a refresh. Live demos, right? Oh, no internet, beautiful. All right, hold on 1 second. And we're live. All right, now we'll find Timothy and we'll evaluate. And so the formula has there 19. So we have the age. And so you can test that before obviously you make that workflow active. So make sure before unless you're ready to launch something like this, make sure you don't make that active. Another pro tip there, keep that inactive until you're ready to launch it and offline. But there's also another one in here that is a nice use case where you can see it's actually setting the property for what the age is at the start of the term. So you can kind of see there of what that is being able to be calculated out right here in the formula. So it's taking the date of birth, it's taking the what the date is for the term. So you can see over here with the data source for terms, it's actually looking at the start date. So if under data sources, if you look underneath your terms section, all of the options under terms, all of those data points are actually accessible here through the formulas as well. So you have a lot of flexibility. So these are just some instances and examples of what you can do with these formulas. Custom lead scoring or prospect scoring. We heard a lot on predictive analytics, but you can actually go into a workflow and map out some lead scoring here based off of whatever conditions and logic you want to set up here on the back end. So you can, steps of this is taking a look at what logic you want to put in for the scoring, think that through, and then come in and be able to write out the formula and test it out. But this, you can see some examples here. We're taking a look at major score, citizenship scoring, denomination scoring, and rank. And if you open that up, you can actually take a look and see what is going on there, and you can look at it's taking the different programs. So if you have certain programs that would be ranked higher or more popular than others, they can have points associated with those scores. And then once that student is ran through this formula, you can kind of see what the score is pulled up after it runs it through that calculation. And Timothy's a 1. Sorry, Timothy. Timothy didn't score high on that. Probably want to give a little more effort there. Pick a better program. Just kidding. So that's number 10. So let's go ahead and hop back here. Number 9. Maybe. Number 9. Possibly. No. Sorry, folks. Not sure what's happening here. Are we on the internet still? We are. Okay, starting at the beginning. 10, 9. Using tokens as CC and BCC fields under campaigns. Now this one is interesting. So as you know, in Element, you're writing your campaigns, you have those built out to send to students, but what you probably didn't know is you can actually go, whenever you're building one of these campaigns out, you can actually scroll down to the CC and BCC fields and click Add Token. And that's going to allow you to choose from the different types of relationships that are associated within the system. So if you don't know about Element, it's always student-centered, student-focused. That is the level of truth. But there are different relationship spokes that can come off of that record and be associated with it. If you want to include those in the communications that you're sending out, you're able to go in there and actually determine that through those different tokens and select which ones that you want to be added into that campaign and included in those communications as well. So that's number 9. I'm curious, how many people are using this? How many people did know about this? All right, so, okay, all right, cool. Element people that work for Element, don't raise your hands, that's cheating. All right, let's keep on rolling here. Number 8, we have a couple here for forms. So we've recently undergone some updates to our forms where you can process payments to those forms, and we talked about that a little bit on our product keynote of what that looks like. But if we go in here to the platform, we can take a look at what that process actually looks like. And you can see if we select payment down here, this is where you're able to go in, turn that payment on, you're able to turn on discounts, you're able to associate different payment types, you're able to have conditional logic associated with the payments that are going through, so that can be adjusted based off of how they're going through it. And then you also have the ability, and you'll notice up here the little drop down to change a form between prospect and a simple form. Now, in the past, whenever a form was submitted, you'd also have to develop a workflow that would add an inquiry milestone on that record. Now, very easy, very simple, you can differentiate between what a prospect form is and what a simple form is. If it is a prospect form, it's automatically going to add that inquiry milestone. You don't have to create the workflow. It just makes it a little bit easier on you. So if you have that working in your systems, if you've been doing it for a while, that's something that you can go in and adjust and change moving forward. In the simple form, that's something that you can deploy where, again, collecting donations, or maybe a form for a current student that you want to be able to put out there, or alumni, where you're not necessarily needing to collect an inquiry and track that, but you can just use that for those simple forms that you're going through and setting up. So that's number 8. Number 7, collaborate with the team using Element451 for case management with task templates. And we touched a little bit on this in one of our sessions yesterday, but I think that it's really important to continue to drive this home because there's not a lot of you that are using this right now, and I think that it's really important to start using it because you're going to see once you start to collect the different departments, the different steps along that student journey, and not just with prospect all the way through application, you're gonna continue to see the power of the platform kind of transform your processes and the way that you engage with students. So let's hop over here and we'll just go dive in a little bit deeper to what that looks like in the system. And we're gonna open up this task template. And this is really what Eric was talking about when he brought this up. This is huge because whenever we first launched tasks, we had it set up in such a way that it was very manual process. So using it, mapping something like this out, it was cumbersome enough to where we were like Eric said, people probably aren't gonna use this very much because it's a cumbersome process. So rolling out task templates allows us to not only get very granular and detailed with things like building a case or building a project, but automating that through a workflow. So you can see as we scroll through here, you're able to go through and assign that to whoever you want, teams or individuals. You can assign it to multiple individuals if you want as well. So if we exit that out and I want to assign it to me, and I want to assign that to Andrew Gaddis, you can assign that and we'll throw artists in there so he can be part of the party. You can assign it to as many people as you want. And then you can see as you scroll down here, you can make the due date on this to be either exact or relative to whenever that's executed. And then you can kind of set up the due date based off of when that was ran and executed. All the things from type, status, and priority, this is where you get a semblance of control because you're able to configure whatever types you want, whatever statuses you want, and priorities that are unique to your institution that helps you better organize your workflows and what those look like, and even vernacular of how you're kind of naming the workflow processes that you're building out. And down here, you can give that a description, and then here's where you add in your subscribers. So these subscribers that you can add in are people that maybe want to be in the loop, part of the process, but not necessarily have a hand in completing anything. And then, of course, you have all of your subtasks that are associated with that case. So like they were saying earlier, if you want to have 1 or 100 subtasks underneath of it, probably don't recommend that, but you can, right? So you have these subtasks underneath to where you can go through and manage that entire case for that student, what that looks like all the way through. So this one for low midterm grade intervention, you'll be able to kind of set up the different touch points and bring in different individuals because it doesn't have to be the same person. These are all separate tasks, even though they're subtasks. So you can scope them differently based off of type, based off of status, based off of who's assigned to, so you can kind of divvy that out amongst different people on your team. But the other piece to using Element451 as that kind of student success and being able to see what's going on along that journey for those current students is using, well, I'd say journey, I'll say it again, right, is our journeys. You're able to build this up, and while the tasks templates are what is managing you keeping track of what you're responsible for, the journey that is scoped to the individual student that is going through that individual journey is where you're going to keep track of where they are along that journey. And each of these different steps that you're associated are putting the student at the center. Like most of the things in the platform, we're looking at the behavior and the activity of that student to know when they join that particular journey and when they move from one step to the next based off the activity, the engagement that they're having with the things you're putting in front of them, or the signals that we're bringing in from the different platforms, your LMS, your SIS. So this is, hello? Okay, did I drop out? Okay, good, just making sure. Not going crazy, not yet. So you can see all of this kind of driving the student from one to the next, and that is going to be able to present itself and be seen on the student record as they continue to go through that journey. So student success, collaborating with your team. Another thing you probably didn't know you could do in Element. Maybe a little bit because we talked about it earlier, but start doing it now. Number 6, in your voice. Control your brand with writing styles. I love this. We've touched on it briefly in some sessions. I don't know if everyone's been in that session or not, but your brand writing style. So we talked a lot about utilizing our assistants to do things like generate content, write messages, build emails, write out entire campaigns. But the question I get in demos a lot whenever I show that was, not anymore, was, well, how do I know that the school across the street that's using Element isn't just going to have a bunch of emails that sound like my emails? Well, it's because you actually have the ability to go in and establish and set up what your brand writing style is. So go in and put in what that is, what the tone, the voice, the point of view, the writing intent, all of that. And one of the things that I've noticed is some people don't even know how to fill that out. They're like, that's weird. I've never thought about as an institution what our point of view is or what our voice is or what tone is. I know, we have a little bit of that. So if you have, you can't come up with this stuff on your own, one of the cool things that we've added in here is being able to infer from an example. So taking some of your previous marketing material that you've built out that you've used across the board, dropping that in as an example text, and then the AI will actually create what your writing style is based on that marketing material that you're dropping in there. So this is going to be the second piece to that knowledge base, right? The knowledge base is kind of the brain of your institution. The writing style is the voice of your institution. So together, that's what maximizes the using of the assistants to create content and write on behalf of your institution. All right, I keep swiping the wrong way. Next up, number 5, call to actions on profile templates. And this was an interesting one. I collaborated with some team members on this one to talk about it, to come up with use cases. But how many people are using profile templates across the board? Calls to action, customizing those. This is a really interesting one because one of the things that you can go in and set up whenever you're building out these profile templates are the call to action buttons. And you'll notice here, we have two. I feel like I've almost pointed, use this as a laser pointer. Can that be done? But you can see here, we have these 2 buttons for qualified lead workflow and welcome campaign. So what this allows you to do, and I'll kind of put you in a scenario, is you're on the phone with the student, maybe they've had their first hand raising inquiry and you want to qualify that lead. So you're on the phone with them, you're talking to them, or maybe they're standing in front of you in person. This gives you a way to quickly and easily put that student in a specific workflow. So if you click this button, it's actually going to drop them into a workflow that can automatically set a source, create a task, assign a label, but essentially all of the back-end management things that you have to be triggered off. Now, traditionally, sometimes we've told people, hey, you can use a label for this, but there's some things that can happen in the process with that. Maybe you pick the wrong one. Maybe there's a lot of labels in here. It's harder to go in and find as opposed to just going over here and clicking a button and dropping them directly into that qualified lead workflow. And this is just one example, right? Let your creativity be your guide. This is essentially, because what's happening whenever you're setting these up, and I'll go ahead and open up the qualified lead one right here. You'll notice that you're able to establish what the label says for the call to action button, the icon, and then what action is actually occurring. So the action here is to run a workflow rule, and then you go in and you select whatever that workflow rule is. So anything that you're building those rules out for to automate processes with, you can execute them with the click of a button scoped to that particular student. And the second thing that you're able to do, and I'll hop into the other example, is send a communication or a campaign email or text to one person specifically. So again, similar use case here. If you have a student that is in front of you, you're talking to them live and in person, or maybe they said, hey, that is the trigger point for whenever they're supposed to get that specific communication, you click that button and it gets to them within seconds. I was talking to Eric and Petter about this, and they were like, yeah, we made some adjustments and some changes, so whenever you click that button, it gets to them lickety-split. So it's very convenient in that term to really just maximize the process and get things done quickly and efficiently without having to add a lot of steps, clicks, navigating around the system to get those things done. Number 4, private versus public knowledge base. So again, something that we've discussed as we've dove into the knowledge base here previously is we talked about things like Bolt Discovery that we recently released. But essentially what this is going to allow you and your staff and faculty, whoever's using Element to utilize, is going to be that repository of information that you want them to utilize as they work day in and day out. So questions they may have for internal processes, standard operating procedures, you can put in HR manuals, so if they want to know how many PTO days people get, what holidays do we get off for the institution. So this is really meant to close those gaps of people being able to find information. Similar to how the students are using the assistants, the staff can use it conversationally the exact same way. So think of all of those different documents or resources that you have on your institutional website that you're putting together for people to go search and find, and load those into the knowledge base. Because on top of that, they're also able to, and I think we covered this in an earlier session as well, they're able to go in and also ask questions about Element451 because our entire help center is loaded into that knowledge base. So if we go in here, let's see, let's open up Copilot. We can say, what holidays do we have off? And it's going to go into that knowledge base, and it's differentiating between private and public. So then you can see there, Element University observes the following holidays, and it lists those out. Additionally, university will be closed from the 26th through the 31st. So it just gives that conversational interface for staff, faculty, whoever's in the platform to come in and get what they need when they need it. No time constraints. They don't have to send the email. Then the other person that has to respond is responsible for it, answer those questions. It just, again, it helps close those gaps and kind of bring everyone up consistently to the same knowledge level. All right. Number 3, importing documents. Now, there's not a demo to show at this one. It'd be pretty bleak and boring, and not a lot of sizzle to this reel, but it was a question on one of our earlier sessions, so I know it's something that's important and something that you are wondering. You can, through our import-export module, apart from just importing and exporting data, you can also set up the import-export of an index file specifically for institutions to look at importing documents from Parchment or Scribble directly into Element451 and attaching those to student records. So that's something that's come up quite a bit and something that our integrations team has intentionally worked towards and are continuing to work towards to make more robust as well. But that is something that you probably didn't know. I know that for a fact because people were asking questions. So now you know. Number 2, email previews. Now this is a fun one. First off, before I show it off, did anyone know you could do this? Oh, dadgummit, I gotta get one, right? Ah, daggone. All right, number 2. All right, so email previews. So essentially, within a student record, there is an activity feed that is showing you all of the activity that is going on within that student. So everything from emails to when they're accessing and logging into their account, what device they're doing that from, their course information that's coming in, forms they've completed, essentially just the entire smorgasbord of activity that Element is collecting on that particular student. So then whenever you go under the email section, you're actually able to go under any of these emails that are being delivered, and you'll notice the eye there to view details, and then you can see all the information and details of that particular message, but you can also view the content that was sent to that particular student and viewed how they viewed it and received that message email. So this gives you that transparency to look in to see how these messages are coming across and how they're being sent and received from the students that you're sending them to. And you just have that extra layer of transparency and visibility to what's going on there as well. It's just added, compounded on top of everything else that you can see from an informational standpoint. So that is number 2. And number 1, conversation tips. Now, we have 3 here, so we'll spend a little bit more time on these and doing a little bit more of a demo on them. But essentially, conversations is a place where hopefully you'll be able to see and spend a lot of time in, whether that's stepping in and handling a conversation yourself, or it's being able to have that transparency to the conversations that are occurring between the AI assistants and the students that are coming in and talking and asking questions. So a couple of things that are going to make that a little bit more easy on you and kind of remove some barriers that we've seen in the past are being able to go in and utilize things like our quick filters. So normally, whenever you think of filters, you're probably going to click this and be greeted with all this different list of filters that you can set up and establish as our advanced filtering section. But there are also quick filters here, so you can see everything that may be individually assigned to you, everything that's opened. You can see everything that had a Bolt assistant handoff or an assistant participated in, so you have that quick look to be able to filter through everything that's happening there. And you're able to access that right here with the drop-down for Inbox. The second thing that we have as a part of this is translation. Now, Petter was testing out the AI voice capability within our assistants that you can see here, and that was in another language. Petter, I'm sorry, I don't know what that language is, but it was in another language there that you can kind of see, and notice it's already transcribed by Bolt, that you can kind of see what that was said in the message. And then you can also see what the assistant's response is, which is really quite amazing. They can respond in over 100 different languages. I don't know 100 different languages. I'm betting none of you do as well. So whenever you see this come through, what happens when you have to step into that conversation? A little bit of a confusing point right there. So what we have in here built in is the ability to go in and translate any of these to English or Spanish as those messages come in. So it's removing that barrier of students that come in and they may speak a different language, and it doesn't matter whether you speak English, Spanish, whatever language this is, anyone can help me out if they know, or anything else, right? You're removing those barriers. And not only that, but whenever you're writing your responses out to those students, you have assistants there helping you every step of the way. So if you need the assistants to draft a reply for you, you can set that up as well. So as soon as that message comes through, you can read it, translate it, read it, and then have it auto-generate a reply so it can analyze what the conversation has been and get the full context of it, and then generate a reply for you to send right over, and that can be translated directly using assistants into the language that they're speaking with you already. And then you can also just generate a custom reply by putting in a prompt for how you want it to reply in the context. You can provide it additional context outside of what's happening in the conversation to help it answer more specifically to how you need it to. So you can have that as tools right there at your disposal to leverage as you need. And then you'll notice right here with Bolt AI, this is where you can translate to the different languages, change the tone. So exactly in the AI marketing automation section, all the tools that you have as you're kind of going in and creating those email campaigns or texts, you're able to go in and use this to kind of help fine tune that message, put it in the format that you want, the language that you want, the tone, everything that you need to across the board. So those are the 10. Now I will say, I said I was gonna have some magic here. So whenever we were kind of brainstorming what we were gonna cover, I was worried that we wouldn't have enough time to cover 10 things total. And I think I was right. How much time do I have left? 3 minutes? Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, see, I was right. I did good on time. But we came up with 19. Okay, so we had 19 things that we had, and we don't want to shortchange you. We came up with 19. We want to give you 19. So we will be giving, whenever we send the resources out after this, we're going to be sending you all of the ones. And this is coming from the Brain Trust. I know I'm pretty awesome, but I did this with Petter and Eric, and those guys are incredibly smart, as you've seen. So we're going to be giving those as resources as well. So a little bit additional pixie dust for you there as you kind of leave. You're going to get more tips and tricks. And then there will also be associated deeper dives, whether it's videos, help articles associated with each of these, because I don't want to just give you the sizzle reel and leave you like, hey, I don't even know how to do all this stuff you just told me about. That's not the intention of this. I wanted to go breadth, not depth, and then provide the depth for you to take home and work on later. Another key resource as you look at these, and if the creativity has been triggered in your brain and you're like, oh, well, we can use this for this purpose and this for that, we have an incredible CS team. Danielle is right here up front, right? So she is one of the leaders of the CS team, and they are all here. So downstairs, they're doing Ask an Experts. You can ask them, you'll see them walking around. Stop them, ask them questions. We love to help solution things for you all to come up with different ideas, ways to use the platform to get you deeper integrated in that. So talk with us, ask us those questions. We're happy to help along the way. And then if you're a part of our workshops on tomorrow, shameless plug for workshops. If any of these things come up, there's going to be things that we talked about in here that are related to some of the workshops that we're leading. So hold on to those questions and then ask them, right? We're there to help you. That is what the workshops are for, to get a little more of that depth. So 3 things you're gonna walk away with. Ask us questions here. Workshops tomorrow. And you're gonna get all these resources plus more with a deeper dive on those things as we leave today. But I always wanted to do this. I'm pulling a Tim Cook or Steve Jobs. There's one more thing. All right, my one more thing. It's going to kind of be a dud if you were in the last session, so I apologize because they did bring it up. So I piped it up a little bit too much. But one of the features that we do have coming, especially with our campaigns, is utilizing AI block as opposed to going in and even writing out the different conditions that you have set up and going in and doing that and coming up with those versions yourself and creating them and writing all the copy. You can actually go in and put in a prompt, utilize tokens, and put in that prompt. And this is what is, and this is to Artis's point in the product keynote where he talked about earlier, the next step in creating that audience of one, right? That segment of one that we want to reach and talk to and give that individual focus and personalization at scale. That hasn't been possible before generative AI came onto the scene, and that is what we are putting into the platform now. So is not out yet, but it is something that is coming soon that you probably didn't know unless you were in the last session. Now you know, and now you know even more, so you can get excited about it. So think about all these use cases, all these things that you may be doing or may not be doing. And yeah, thanks for coming to my first Engage session, right? Did I do good? All right, thank you. You got to make sure you find Artis and tell him how good I did, because I have a bet that I would do better than he did at his session. So just let him know what you think. All right, thanks y'all, have a good one.